Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Executive Director Zakiya Uzoma-Wadada and Program Officer for Education and Research Renée Francois, they join us to discuss transformation and resilience within and without the Emancipation Support Committee of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, ladies. I want to start off with you, please, Mama Zakiya. In terms of commemorating 30 years of transformation and resilience, what are some of those specific milestones that are to be commemorated?
Yes, I think over the last 30 years, one of the major objectives of the organization that has been achieved is that we have indeed raised the profile of the celebration of emancipation in Trinidad and Tobago. And in the raising of its profile, we have also changed the name into just celebrating emancipation celebrations to the Pan-African Festival, TT, commemorating emancipation, which also reflects its international profile. So in addition to raising the bar with respect to the celebration of emancipation, the organization itself has also developed into a fully occupied organization that, has a secretariat. We function every day. We operate based on a number of program areas that the organization has defined for itself. We do our strategic planning each and every year. So whereas in the beginning, the group was just a small group of persons who would have come together just to plan the emancipation celebrations, now the organization is a fully independent, non-government organization, properly registered, or, as I said, function under a number of program areas: education and development, entrepreneurial development, community mobilization and development, culture, etc. And in addition to that, we also believe with respect to transformation, we have been able to impact the minds of many of our people to grow, to say, I'm African, because when we started this process, that was one of the journeys, that's that identity crisis. Now, not everyone, but many more of us are now able to accept I am African. We are comfortable wearing, ethnic wear, and not feel that it is a costume or something, but it is just beautiful clothes that really brings out the best in us because we are wearing the clothes that we were meant to wear. And of course, they hold on the education, so the education program have built a great level of awareness among our people about our history, about ourselves. Another major milestone for us is our competition in the schools. We do an annual African history quiz in our secondary schools and a spoken word competition in our primary schools. So that what we would call it, that effort that we will make to get into our schools, even as we were challenging, the education system and the need for its change, the fact that we were able to go into the schools and begin the education of sharing with the children the information that we would like to share is also a major milestone for us. We have an annual trade and investment symposium where we engage persons from the continent and the Caribbean and the USA around major issues of trade and investment. So these are some of the milestones, not all of them, but these are some of the major milestones of the organization.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that point you talk about wanting the system to change in terms of the education system, but at the same time, while this is the system that is in place, still engaging with it to have influence go through. But with that in mind, and talking about education, I want to talk about education and research, please, Ms. Francois. And with the question, how do we track resilience? Is it anecdotal evidence? Is it through an instrument like a survey? How do we measure a defined quantity called resilience?
Okay, so at least for us at the Secretariat, we have been documenting our ability to overcome the challenges that have come our way. The most recent example has been the COVID-19 pandemic. ESCTT has been able to adapt in such a short period of time, and we were able to overcome the pandemic both in 2020 and 2021. We would have collaborated with UE to have our festival go online in 2020. And in 2021, staff expanded their skill sets and we were able to do it for ourselves. And I think it's something that we're very proud of. And it's not just the festival. We were able to do our community workshops where we engage community groups and help them to build on their own the structure of their own organizations. The African History Quiz and Spoken Word competition, we were also able to take that online. And while it was quite a challenge, I really do believe that ESC really rose to the occasion and still was able to serve our public and our communities.
And in terms of continuing to serve, what are some of those things that are at the top of the totem pole with regard to, okay, these are things that we want to include in our research focus. These are things that we want to find out a little more or share a little more on, Ms. Francois.
Right, so we have really two big research activities going on. One is based on youth and crime, and we are really using newspapers as a way of tracking crime that takes place in Trinidad and Tobago. Who are the perpetrators? Who are the victims? What type of crime is it? Is it, a violent crime? Is it a non-violent crime? Was a weapon used? Because we understand that once we have data and once we have research, an appropriate way of addressing the issues and the problems in our society can be, come up with. Another area, and this is something I'm very passionate about because I went to school and studied this. I went to school and I studied history at UE, has been doing research on slave registers here in the Caribbean, as well as slave ship registers. So we have actually documented slave ship registers online, as well as the slave registers. We were able to create exhibits. So if you actually visit our village, you'll be able to see some of the same information I'm talking about at the ESC booth. It's something that we continue to build on. So we have information from Trinidad and Tobago, information from Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so it's a difficult area to study because you're being very much confronted with a tragic past, but it's important that we have this information with us and that we know about it and we know how to address it. We have also been combining at least 3 databases together to really sort of paint a large picture about that experience of chattel slavery here in the Caribbean, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the Caribbean. Another project we're working on is a research center where we are building our own library or research center, and we want to begin to encourage the public to come and visit us and use our research material, our books, to do their own research and gather their own
research. So I want to get a little more information about that when we return. So I don't want you to squeeze up the answer inside this small piece before we go to the break. So stay with us. We are speaking with Zakiya Uzoma-Wadada as well as Renée Francois of the Emancipation Support Committee. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We are going in depth on resilience and the transformation with Renée Francois of the Emancipation Support Committee, as well as Executive Director Zakiya Uzoma-Wadada. And Ms. Francois, I could tell your answer, but where will that research center be? What is the importance in saying, okay, well, this is a space, this is an energy, this is something brick and mortar that is dedicated to this purpose?
So the idea is that we will expand our secretariat at 5B Bergerac Road, Maraval, and have our research center there. But because that's something that we're currently working on, what we would advise the public to do is reach out to us via our social media platforms or via email and let us know, hey, I'm doing a research on this particular type of topic. I need advice on where I can get information on this. And we would be able to assist them, but it's, saying, come visit us at so and so time. You can view the books then, or you can check out these other materials at these other centers or online.
Thank you so much. And Mama Zakiya, how do you feel hearing Ms. Francois talk and hearing the passion, hearing the eloquence just coming out, especially when some people say, young children are business for that? How do you respond to that?
I am so proud of her. My heart is full because that's why we work so hard. And therefore, when we find young people who we know will stand on our shoulders, it makes us feel that our mission has been fulfilled. So I am so happy to hear Renée, and these are the kind of young people. We don't have many of them, but the few that we have, very committed, very clear about the agenda of the organization, and therefore I am really very happy to hear her so confidently expressing not only the work of the organization, but her own work.
And I think sometimes...
And giving people a better understanding of the depth of the work that takes place at the ESCTT Secretariat.
Definitely. And what's the significance, what's the impact? How do you feel when, and looking at the significance of observing efforts like this inside the decade of the people of African descent? I think that it goes till 2024, I believe.
Yes. I mean, it's absolutely important. The theme for the decade is recognition, justice, and development. Unfortunately, it has not received the public profile that it should, not only just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the Caribbean. And as I said in a previous interview I did today, I think it is all part of that colonial mental attitude that we can have a United Nations declaration of decades of people of African descent. And it is not, a key public sector issue. It's not something that people think is important. In an area where there are so many people, African people dwell. So it is very sad, but we think that we have a responsibility. And so we continue to profile the decade in all that we do, and indicate that the work that we are doing is contributing. So we are guided by the fact that recognition issues are important. I mean, we have always done that, but when we do it, for example, when we prepare our quiz, our manuals for our children, we put the logo for the decade for people of African descent on it, because by doing the booklets and sharing the information, we are actually fulfilling some of the recognition objectives of the decade. Development, when it made reference to our work in the communities. We meet with our community groups once a month. We do workshops with them, and we also offer workshops to other NGOs and so on, so that can help to build their capacity. And of course, our education, our lecture series, and all of these are part of that development aspect of ourselves, because it's through education and through knowledge that we will develop, and then justice, by using our voice or our pen, to air our views when there are issues of justice that need to be addressed in the society. So the organization takes when the first few years of the decade, we did hold a youth conference in the decade and get a sense of what young people were thinking about it. We did an adult conference in the decade and also got a sense of what people. So we have done our own way to spread the word about the decade, to spread the objectives and the activities that have been proposed for the decade. But unfortunately, I know we really are concerned and continue to be concerned that we have now reached the 8th year of the decade, and it has never become a major issue for the governments of our own country nor the Caribbean. And we think it's very sad. You know, so it's only those organizations that are Pan-African organizations of the country who are trying their best to maintain this awareness of the decade and to do work that they feel are in compliance with its objectives.
All right, and in terms of articulating those views, looking at the issues, I want to ask you, Ms. Francois, what kind of level of information do you think is needed to encourage more youth to learn about ancestral identities?
I want to say that first, I think the Black Lives Matter movement in the US has had a significant impact here in Trinidad and Tobago. And because of that, a lot of young persons of African descent have made an effort to learn more about their culture, their African culture, and their history. We have been doing what we call an African History Caravan. We actually came up with it as a project or effort to celebrate the International Decade for People of African Descent, where we carry the exhibits to various secondary schools, or if camps requested, we'll also make it available, or community groups. What I think what we should build on is maybe having a database, you know, a space where the information can be easily accessible online. I mean, that requires, you know, funding. It requires, you know, persons with special skill sets to make it happen. But we at ESC have been doing our part with this mobile caravan. And I think what we can do again is make it accessible online. And our caravans, our exhibits are set up in a way that it's fun, it's easy to consume information. It's nothing that's going to overwhelm anyone, because we are also mindful that we try to educate children of various age groups. But yeah, we need to make this information a lot more accessible to our youth.
And in the final 2 minutes we have, I want to talk about how it is people engage with the Emancipation Support Committee. I know you all have the quiz. I know you all are going to be at the Emancipation Village. But in terms of that digital presence where people can reach out to you throughout the year, what is that like, Ms. Francois?
Okay, so I want to encourage persons to please visit our Facebook page. You can get a lot of, you know, up-to-date information there. It's Emancipation Support Committee -TT. You can send us messages on your Facebook page. We're also on Instagram and YouTube. Those are TTESC. For those of us who are not on social media platforms, that's fine. A regular email will do. It's info.emancipation@esc-tt.org. And we're very responsive. And we look forward to engaging with our publics and our communities. We love engaging with them, and we love sharing that information and being a support to them as well.
All right, thank you so much. It was.
Oh yes, sorry. Also have the website. So if you Google emancipation-tt.com, you can also visit us and get a wealth of information there as well.
All right, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Ms. Renée Francois, the Research and Education Officer. As well, it's always a pleasure, Mama Zakiya Uzoma-Wadada, Executive Director of the Emancipation Support Committee. And this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.